Hello, good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be watching this. Welcome to the first edition of Contemplating, Debating, which this is a new political talk show with my good old friend Tommy Bowyer. And basically in this we're going to be talking about current topics in the political world, giving our opinions, and yeah, that's basically it.
Hello everybody, I'm Tommy Bowyer. You probably will be seeing me a lot on this podcast, and as Matthew said, we're just going to be talking about some of the recent political activity, and there's quite a lot of interesting topics to talk about politically at this moment, so I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
So as many of you know, the big topic at the moment is of course Brexit, England and the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. And originally we're meant to be, well, we could possibly still be, but it's very unlikely now, that we are meant to be leaving on the 29th of March this year. But, yeah, things have not quite worked out, have they?
No, not at all. Not at all. Once again, in this Brexit drama, it's another false promise again. It's been pushed back once again. We could either leave, I think it's early April or midway through May. There's two dates which they have set.
14th of April or the 22nd of May.
However, they're even trying to now argue ways around that. And it's all about the idea is that if we don't leave past May, we will have to participate in the European elections for our seats in the European Parliament. Now, if we sit in them, then that can create a lot of potential issues. We might not actually be allowed to leave. The reason why they wanted us out by now is because they don't want us to participate in those elections. And our Parliament have decided that they just want to draw it out. And in the end, what we're going to see is we're going to have to either make a decision of whether we're going to stick in the European Parliament elections or we're going to be kicked out before then. So there's two possible scenarios which we could have. Unless, of course, Theresa May's deal gets through, which it doesn't look like there's enough support for it at the moment. She's trying to draw that out to the end of the week, even though there probably is never going to be enough support for that deal because it's far too vague on numerous issues and it doesn't really please anyone. As she admitted last night, it was a compromise agreement. So it's not going to win over anyone, not Brexiteers and not Remainers either.
And the way the EU phrased this with extension is, we will leave, the extension lasts till, I believe, the 14th of April if the deal does not get passed through Parliament. And if it does get passed through Parliament, we'll be leaving on the 22nd of May, which the EU have not really been too clever in their thinking because, one, John Perko has already ruled that the deal can't be voted on again unless there are substantial changes or changes in circumstances, and well, Theresa May's not made any effort to actually try and renegotiate, which is what is basically an EU treaty. It's not really her deal. The EU are the ones who wrote it for her in the first place, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's very good. To be honest, if you want my personal opinion, which I'm going to give my personal opinion, I think that we should just leave without a deal. Just tell them to stuff it, just leave. I mean, yeah, fair enough. In the short term, we're going to face some potential financial difficulties. It will take a little while to work everything out. However, we have America, Japan, we have all of these nations who have stated they are literally waiting for us to leave so that they can start trading with us again. And constantly, we're putting Europe first. I don't understand why. We voted in the referendum to leave the European Union. Theresa May's deal doesn't do that. Theresa May's deal, she stated that she would leave the customs union. We're still in the customs union with her deal. This backstop idea just doesn't make sense. No offence. If we need a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, then that is simply what's going to have to happen. I don't understand, it's a hard border. Get on with it. There are loads of hard borders everywhere. It doesn't stop anything from happening.
The problem is with the hard border, that is, there's not going to be a hard border. England, the UK have said there's not going to be a hard border. Ireland said there's not going to be a hard border. The EU said there's not going to be a hard border. So why is everyone saying there's going to be a hard border? There are many ways to do custom checks, not at the border. So it can be have a soft border with custom checks elsewhere within the country itself.
Yeah, honestly, if it's getting ridiculous now. We've drawn this out 2 years now, And all those people which voted leave, they voted leave because they believe in Britain. They believe that Britain is strong and it can survive without the European Union. And haven't we seen in the last 2 years just how undemocratic the European Union is? I mean, they have been so... Well, they've just not given us any leeway whatsoever. We should be dictating what we get from this, not the other way around. We are one of the biggest economies in Europe, and they're for some reason deciding to think that they have some kind of influence over us, which they don't. And if you look at some of the big governments in the European Union, Germany, France, you've got all of those governments facing potential problems in their own country. All their approval ratings are right down at the moment.
Just look at the state of the economies as well.
So no one actually likes them. However, they feel they can dictate what we are doing just because we're trying to make decisions on a bigger and brighter future for our nation. And I think that's ridiculous. I think the European Union should be ashamed of themselves.
Then you got all these people calling for a second referendum.
Right.
But it's quite funny though, since the whole Brexit process has been happening, I don't think that would be such a good thing for the people who want to stop Brexit, the people who want a second referendum, because this process has made people much more aware of just what Europe is. People, I've spoken to a lot of people, seen a lot of people speak on Twitter and all throughout social media saying that they voted to leave or voted to remain, but have seen what sort of people the EU are, how democratic. They're essentially, with how they work with countries, they're basically bullies. That's how they operate. And people thought, the EU, that just sounds like it was just a trading bloc, which, given it back in the day, it was just a trading bloc. But now people have got onto this idea is that Europe is turning into something more. They want a United States of Europe. They want us to all be the exact same country. Basically like the United States of America, where a country is not a country, it's a state of Europe.
The difference being with the United States, by and large, they all identify as Americans.
Yeah.
Europe is not like that. You've got France, you've got Germany, you got all these different countries. They have different national identities, different languages, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it all join together, and it's just not going to do it. There's far too much diversity there.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe Europe will collapse. The European Union will collapse because you're right. It used to be a trading bloc, and that was fine when it was a trading bloc. But Britain was even hesitant to join it then because it was just a trading bloc. Because the Prime Minister at the time, when they first thought about joining it, Clement Attlee, who was actually Labour, so yeah, times have changed, stated that if we join here, we might never have control over our country again. And by God, how right he was. How right he was. Because even though when we're trying to get back control, there is still a bunch of people in this country who seem to think we will have a second referendum and we will respect what happens in that second referendum. They said that about the first referendum, and they have not once even respected the results in that. They have constantly stated that we need to have a second referendum, and if that goes even bigger majority for Brexit, we need to have a third referendum, then a fourth and a fifth. And before you know it, we have a referendum every year on leaving the European Union. And a second referendum is also, it's just a way to kind of push it back. It's just a way to say, okay, let's not talk about Brexit because we need to sort out this second referendum first. And it's just ridiculous. The politicians especially, who are trying to push for this second referendum, and personally, I think they should be ashamed of themselves, because no way are they putting the nation's interests first. No way. They're putting their own interests first.
So what needs to happen now? Well, God, there's so many things Theresa May have said, but she's ruled out the option which is getting more and more likely by the day, and that is no deal. She says it's either her deal, no Brexit, a second referendum, or long extension. That's her options. She's not actually looked at the options which are legally binding by law, and with this extension being passed, which it's more likely will become UK law as well. But then you got the argument is, does EU law override English law? And that's the whole thing there, with one of the reasons why people voted to leave. But the extension But if this new extension becomes law, it's still law that if we don't pass this withdrawal agreement, we leave with no deal on the 14th of April. That is the law, and Theresa May is still so hell bent on trying to rule out what has been approved by Parliament already, and that is we leave on this date with or without a deal. If you haven't got one passed, we're leaving regardless. That is what people voted for. On the ballot box, there wasn't no, or should we leave with Theresa May withdrawal agreement? It was leave in name and fully, not just in name only. We leave the European Union, cut all ties. Well, not literally all ties with them, but we still want to trade with them. But all of this political tie, this whole large United States of Europe ties, and we don't want all that. We want to be a self-governing country that is, well, proud to be British, proud to be one of the world leaders, proud to be out there standing on our own 2 feet. That's what we want.
I think we've seen, especially in the last couple of weeks, Prime Minister Theresa May has just shown that she is literally in the last chance saloon now.
Yeah.
She, in my personal opinion, is one of the worst prime ministers we have in this modern world. I honestly believe that she has gone back on her word so much. She said at the original thing, no deal is better than a bad deal. However, she now wants to rule out the possibility of a no deal. She's hell-bent on getting her legislation passed that she was even going to go against the Speaker's advice and put her deal for a third meaningful vote. And I honestly believe that would be defeated. Might not be by such a big margin, but it will still be defeated.
Yeah.
And even then, she is using her own job to try and win. She's saying to Brexiteers, I will resign if my deal passes, if you vote for my deal. It shouldn't work like that.
No.
She can't use her job like that. And I honestly think she needs to step down.
Yeah.
Because I know people say, cabinet, we really can't afford a new leader right now. Anyone would be better than Theresa May. She has no authority in Europe. She has no authority in this country. She is a dead woman walking. And if you want my honest advice, I think she should just resign and leave.
Yeah.
Because she's just terrible. Honestly, at the moment, she's just terrible.
And there's this whole thing saying, we should stop Brexit. People didn't know what they voted for. Well, actually, we had quite a few votes on leaving the EU. So, for example, David Cameron's 2015 manifesto, a lot of that was revolved around having the vote, having a referendum. So people voted for, in quite a large majority, for David Cameron on that pledge. Then we had the 2016 referendum, where Leave won. Then we also had 2017 general elections, where parties stood on pro-Leave manifestos, including Theresa May's own manifesto, saying we would leave the customs union, we would leave the single market, we will not be ruled by the European Court of Justice. All that she stood on a manifesto. It was in a manifesto what we'd be doing when we're leaving the European Union.
And could I just point out that in terms of, she lost her majority, but in terms of popular vote, she got one of the highest popular vote margins in recent years.
Yeah.
That's how many people voted for her vision of Brexit.
She may have lost her majority, but more people voted for Conservatives overall.
Yeah. And they probably would have won a majority if she hadn't have run such a terrible campaign herself. Yeah. But that's not for here. I think this Brexit thing is just kind of getting a bit silly now. I think we need to leave. We need to leave without a deal. If you want my honest in what I think we should do, I think we should leave without a deal. We should just turn around and say, right, we're going to leave without a deal. Theresa May, hand in your resignation, allow the Conservatives to pick out a new leader, and then install that new leader so that they can start going about the post-Brexit things, what we're going to do without a deal, what kind of trade things we're going to go for.
What we should do without a deal is, obviously the big talk at the moment is a WTO Brexit, which is going to the World Trade Organization, and they will be basically the middleman sorting out helping us trade with the rest of the world. This was a good suggestion. That was, we go to the World Trade Center, we trigger something called Article 24, which means we can basically implement for a 2-year period a free trade agreement against us and the European Union. But the European Union, of course, would have to also consent to that. But in that 2 years, we can have a free trade agreement while also us leaving the European Union. And that can sort of work out as our own little transition period. We'll be completely out of the European Union, but we can still have that free trade and a little bit of certainty for that 2 years for us to then negotiate the trade agreement that we're going to have. And us just leaving without being in the grasp of the EU, without signing their treaty, being still in their rule book, we have the bargaining chips. We have the power to say, hang on a minute, it doesn't matter what you say, we've left already. We want to work together in a trade agreement. That's what we want. We don't want any of the other stuff. So if you want to trade, you best negotiate properly.
Yeah, I honestly think, as you've said, that would be the best option for us. Now, I don't understand why we keep limiting ourselves to this European Union deal, which basically means we can't trade with anyone else if it's not through the EU. The only difference is we don't get European elections or anything. So if anything, we have even less than we have now, because we won't actually have representation in the European Parliament, and we'll have to be dictated on by everything else.
Yeah.
And the problem with going for a second referendum, and it goes Remain, for example, what are they going to try and make us do? They could say we have to change over to the euro instead of using the pound. And that would, I personally would hate using the euros.
Well, they want to rob us of our national identity is what they want to do.
Yeah. And that's the problem with the union. They want to rob everyone of their national identity. And that's why you're seeing an increase in all of these far right and right-wing political parties, which are actually gaining a lot of seats across Europe because people are trying to fight for their national identity. And when that's what they don't understand, people are sick of this trying to make everyone the same.
Yeah.
A form of like uniformity where everyone is the same. They even want a European army.
Yeah, they want a European army.
Which, and they're voting all this stuff through. Which is...
Well, if you see a lot of things of what the EU classes are voting through, it means we're going to give you this vote and you're going to keep voting for it until you pass it.
Yeah.
For example, the Lisbon Treaty.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just ridiculous. I mean, I don't like half the stuff the European Union puts through. I mean, the Lisbon Treaty is one of them. On a smaller and a more personal note, I don't like some of the copyright stuff they put through.
Well, Article 13 is just passed today. That's absolute rubbish. Another reason why, if we get out of the EU, we can tell them where to stuff it. We don't need to keep their laws.
That's going to destroy a lot of small YouTube channels and a lot of small independent businesses who work online as well. But that's not what we're talking about today.
But I suppose when we actually feel the effects of what this has done, we can discuss it in another podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Once we actually know how this is going to affect the small creators and the businesses and all that. So with all this talk of Theresa May, she's basically, she's
dead woman walking.
She's buggered it up basically. She is the type of woman you'd expect to walk into DFS and come out of a sofa at full price. That's the type of negotiator she is. In fact, she's just let the EU walk all over her. Said the EU's gone, we got this withdrawal agreement. It's good for us, probably shit for you, but here's the agreement. We wrote it out just for you, Theresa May. All you need to do is sign it and take it to Parliament and pass it through. They're not going to know the difference.
And that's the thing. She's had so many cabinets,
met
ministers walk out over this. I mean, obviously, some of the massive names are David Davis, Boris Johnson. Massive names and a lot of Brexiteers walking out. And if you actually look at it now, there's probably more Remain members in the cabinet than there was Brexiteers. When she came in 2016, and I was actually Matthew was a bit more hesitant.
Theresa May, I didn't support leadership.
I supported her in 2016. I thought, well, because what she was saying, it sounded like she was just going to get on with it.
Yeah.
There weren't going to be any of this superficial nonsense. And now, when she's not doing that, she's dancing to ABBA, Dancing Queen, at her convention, and you just see that and you just think, this is an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed of this leader, because she's honestly, just resign, Theresa May, because no one supports you anymore, and those that do, I just think they're told to support you by you.
Well, there's always that supporter there, basically. The Conservative whip has a very hard time, I would assume, trying to get people to support him. But I think she's not a very good Prime Minister, definitely now, because she can't command her own party. She can't command a majority in her own party, or even the House. No. So, with the amount of lies she's told, what she said she's going to do, and she does the exact opposite, she's just, basically, she's ruined her career by doing this.
Yeah, and now she's saying she wants to stay on after Brexit to deliver her domestic agenda. And if I remember correctly, it was her domestic agenda which caused the biggest uprise in the last general election, with stuff like the dementia tax and that, which she had to go back on once again. So no one wants you to stay around to deliver your domestic agenda. You need to just leave, because otherwise, general election 2022, even though I don't believe in Jeremy Corbyn, I can see the Conservatives getting losing quite a lot of seats
unless they sort the issues out now. They're going to be damaged as a party. So what we need is someone who's respected by all the party members, someone who can properly lead the party and properly pass things through the House. We need someone who is basically pro-Brexit, who actually believes in Brexit, not someone who backed the Remain campaign and started to think they're now delivering Brexit when they didn't even believe in Brexit to begin with.
No.
So the whole rumours at the moment, there was even a rumour there was going to be a cabinet coup to try and oust her. There's a talk at the moment saying that if people vote for a deal, she will resign and stuff.
You can't run a country like that.
No, you can't run a country like that. And she even said she won't even run the next election. So, if Theresa May was to be replaced as leader, who would it be? So if any of you lot are watching, make sure you comment your suggestions down below. We'll try and respond if we can. See who you think should be the next leader of the Conservative Party. So we got a section here where basically we got statistics of what people think on who has the best chance of being the next leader. And in this, we're going to basically talk about the top 10 most likely that people think are going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party, and basically give our opinion on what we think.
So this is from a very reliable site called Sky Bet. Now, this might seem strange, however, this is normal people making bets on this, so obviously it's a little more reliable than what you'd think. So, next permanent Conservative leader, and they've said who will succeed Theresa May as the next permanent leader of the Conservative Party. The top one is Michael Gove, 2 for 1. He's going to be the next leader. Now, honestly, I have mixed feelings about that. I think part of me thinks Gove could unite the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Because he is supported by members of Parliament. I don't think he's supported as much by the general public.
No.
However, in terms of members of Parliament, he gave a brilliant speech, I think it was at the start of the year, which got a lot of support from his own party. And he is a Brexiteer. He does believe in Brexit.
Yeah.
The only problem is some people think he's quite two-faced, with good reason, especially what he did in the 2016 leadership election.
Pulled his support for Boris and decided to run himself.
Yeah, so what are your opinions on Gove?
Oh God, what can I say about Gove? Well, he's in the cabinet at the moment. He says he's voted for and supported Mrs May's withdrawal agreement. Makes you think he's gone a bit soft with his position he used to have on Brexit, on how he was a hardline Brexiteer, and now he's softened up quite a lot. And I think what he's doing, like, for example, the speech he gave in Parliament, where he gave a good speech and ripped into Labour quite a lot. I don't know, he's trying to position himself to the public, saying, oh, I'm going to stand up for all of this stuff, and I don't know. He definitely wouldn't be my top pick for the next leader.
I think the only thing about Gove that is probably a good thing is he has a lot of experience. He was Education Secretary, Chief Whip, Justice Secretary, now Environment Secretary.
And Rural Community.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of experience, and he does actually put a lot of effort in. He put a lot of effort into those departments which he's in. I mean, he's done a lot at the Environment Office since he's been put in there. The only problem is, you're right, he's aligned himself a lot with the Theresa May's government.
Yeah.
So, but he's still the highest one, what people think, who is going to take over. Now, second is Boris Johnson.
Oh, good old Bojo.
And there's a 5 to 1 chance
5 to 1.
he will be the next Conservative leader. Now, probably the only problem with Johnson is he's not supported by a lot of Conservative MPs. So in terms of uniting the party, he probably wouldn't unite it. However, in terms of believing in Brexit, he does believe, and he still does believe. I mean, he resigned as Foreign Secretary over Theresa May's plans. So he hasn't been tainted by that cabinet position.
So I think Boris overall, like, especially from the cabinet, he's not very supported by the main Conservative bunch. But honestly, I would say if he was to run, if a few people back him, let's say, such as Jacob Rees-Mogg, I know they're quite good friends, he'd probably end up backing him in a leadership contest. And then if he can get enough Conservative people to back him, and if it goes to the vote of the Conservative membership, I could actually see a lot of people vote for him. Because there was a survey done, I believe it was at least over 60%, I think it was even 2/3 of Conservative members actually wanted the country to leave without a deal. They wanted Brexit in pure form. So I think among the actual Conservative membership base, I think he's actually quite popular among the normal voters, but within his own party, it may be a bit hard.
Yeah, I think that's the only problem. I think if he went to a membership vote, he'd win.
Yeah.
Winning over, I think it's like 111 MPs you need to win over in the Conservative Party to just get on the first ballot. I think he could potentially do it. I know in 2016 he was seen as the front runner ahead of Theresa May. I think he could run. I think he could.
I think he will run.
Yeah, and I do think that he would run. He's just waiting for the right time to run. I think he wants May to resign instead of trying to kick her out of office. So the third one is good old Jeremy Hunt.
Oh yeah.
8-1. Now he's probably the most, in my opinion, probably the most disliked person on this list. I mean, longest serving health secretary and one of the worst health secretaries we ever had. And he certainly won't win the support of junior doctors if he becomes the next Prime Minister. Yeah. And as Foreign Secretary, he has not really been doing anything. No. He's kind of just been sitting there. I
think the thing he's most known for is forgetting where his wife's from.
I mean, I can't see him.
Not very likeable. Probably some people in his party like him, but most of the public, no. He's unpopular.
No, never.
He's not popular enough.
Never seen him even give a debate or anything. No, he's just never seen him. So David Lidington is next, 10-1. Now, if you thought I hated Jeremy Hunt, this man is called Mr. Europe for a reason. And that's because he's one of the most pro-Remain people in this country. I mean, currently he's the deputy Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancashire. No.
Just the name Mr. Europe alone gives you enough stuff. He loves Europe. He doesn't want us to leave the EU. He wants us to stay in the EU. So what sort of negotiator would he be for Brexit? The perceived people vote for Brexit, but let's just have Brexit in name only. Sort of like what Theresa May's doing now, but probably worse.
Yeah, he would probably be even worse.
Yeah.
No way. Next is another 10-1, and that is Dominic Raab. Now, Dominic Raab was practically unknown until he became Brexit Secretary, and he's probably more known for not actually being Brexit Secretary, but more for resigning.
He's probably more well known now after he's resigned.
Yeah. Raab is a kind of strange one for the simple reason he is. He's young, he's fresh, he's something different.
Yeah, he's definitely fresh face.
He comes from a different generation. He was obviously, when the coalition government, when the Conservatives came into power, he was probably even just a backbencher. I don't know when he was elected.
I can't remember when he was elected.
But he weren't involved in that.
No.
So he's young, and the only problem is he doesn't have a lot of experience.
No.
But you could say that people like Tony Blair didn't have any experience. David Cameron didn't have any experience. So you never know. Maybe Dominic Raab could actually be the next Conservative leader. I think he could win over a lot of voters who are a bit disillusioned with a lot of the older faces that you see.
And what Dominic Raab could do, he can bring a fresh face to the Conservative Party, refresh him, make him more appealable to the general public. Like, he can bring a fresh approach. He can a fresh a fresh face, a fresh perspective. But the problem is, because he's not that well known, like his own party probably wouldn't back him as much because, usually when you support a new leader, they tend to be on the cabinet already. That's how it tends to work. But you never know.
Yeah, the only thing I think is because he's fresh-faced, they might vote him in for the simple reason he's not been tainted by any of the previous governments.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I know David Cameron was in the shadow cabinet, but when they elected David Cameron over David Davis, it was for the simple reason he was fresh-faced and he was new and something different that they had not tried before. Before that, a lot of Conservative leaders were older and much more Thatcher, kind of like that.
Much more senior.
So next is Sajid Javid, and that's 12-1. Now, Mr. Javid has been in the cabinet for quite a while. He was elected in 2010.
Yeah, so he's quite new technically.
Yeah, but even though when he was just elected in 2010, a couple of months later, he was given his first cabinet position. Yeah. So his career kind of...
He rose up the ranks quite quickly.
And before that, I believe he was involved in business quite a lot.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that makes people think Sajid Javid's going for it is he's quite quiet at the moment.
Yeah, he's quite quiet just at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's been Home Secretary since the Windrush scandal. Probably it was actually quite a good idea putting him there. And honestly, Sajid Javid has quite a lot of experience. He's been, a lot of positions he's had. Home Secretary, I think before that he was Housing Secretary, Culture Secretary. So he's had a lot of positions. And I think he could do it.
Yeah, I think he's sort of been trying to position himself, like, for example, the whole thing with asylum seekers, the whole thing with the ISIS bride. Like, the approach that I suppose he got many flack from the left, but I saw the response from people saying, like, with asylum seekers, he's saying, they should go to the first country that they arrive in if they're generally fleeing from danger and stuff. And with the ISIS brides, they said, we don't want them people coming back into the country, revoke their citizenships and all that. And a lot of people, despite what the loony left might think, a lot of people were actually behind his decision on that. So there's actually a lot of public support for his policies like that.
I mean, he was a Remainer, only by the skin of his teeth, though. Yeah. It took him a long time to... because he's notorious for being a Eurosceptic.
Yeah.
And, he voted Remain, but I think he weren't bothered by the referendum results. If anything, he's probably become a bit more right-wing since the referendum. And honestly, Sajid Javid, he comes across as quite a nice guy. I think he could win over public support. The only problem is that it sounds daft, but because he did vote Remain, no matter what he's going to say, he's still going to be seen as someone who advocated for Remain.
Yeah.
So that could potentially cause some difficulties with him. The next is Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Oh, good old Jacob.
25-1. Now, this is probably the most unlikely.
It's very unlikely because even Jacob himself has said he doesn't want to run.
I mean, he's never held a cabinet position. He's a dominant backbencher.
Yeah.
Criticises the government just as much as he criticises the opposition. He's head of the European...
He's the chair of the European Research Group.
Yeah. And honestly, he would not unite the party.
No.
Because he's one of the most prominent talkers of Brexit.
Yeah.
And I don't see him uniting a party.
No.
I think it's just some people, just think, maybe they'll go for a wild card. He has no experience, and I mean no experience whatsoever, not even in a shadow cabinet.
No.
And I just don't see him taking over. I see him being a backbencher for the remainder of his life.
Well, what he said that role of backbencher is to scrutinise the government and also the opposition. And he basically said he doesn't want to have... He said he's quite happy being an MP for East Somerset. He's quite happy, just as he is, but also make sure to criticise the government, try and get the best for Brexit. And he's also said he doesn't want to run, but he's also said he would offer his support to people like Boris for leadership contestants.
I see him as being a force of behind someone getting in rather than him himself getting in. So The next one is someone who everyone thought's political career was over, and that was Amber Rudd, 28-1. Now, I don't like Rudd. I think she showed her true colours when she returned to the backbenches and she started saying we need a second referendum. However, now she's back in the cabinet. That's completely out the window. She's not saying that anymore. Now, honestly, I think she is very corrupt. I think, especially with the Windrush scandal, not only did that Windrush scandal happen under her, she tried to cover it up and make it look like it weren't her to blame. She tried to blame others for it. And it all caught up with her. The idea that she was allowed back in the cabinet was ridiculous. I don't think she should have been allowed back in cabinet. And honestly, she would not unite the party.
No, definitely not.
No, she's a Remainer. She's quite positive for Remain. And I remember watching in the 2017 general election when she debated with the leaders instead of Theresa May, because Theresa May weren't there for some reason.
The reason why she lost majority.
And Amber Rudd weren't really debating very well. She just kept shouting at loads of people. Whereas in 2015 when David Cameron was, calm.
He knew how to command an audience.
Amber Rudd was just kind of shouting and everyone was kind of like, what? Okay, calm down.
Calm down.
So if people watched that debate and then made their decisions, maybe that's why the Conservatives lost their majority. What do you think about Amber Rudd?
What can I say? She's got no chance of being elected. She's not very popular among the public at the moment, that's for sure, and probably not in her party either.
She won her seat so narrowly.
Yeah.
There was like a recount happening because they were unclear whether she actually won or not.
Yeah.
So if we have another general election, what if she loses her seat and she's leader of the party?
Yeah.
That just looks stupid.
Yeah.
Especially if the Conservatives get the largest amount of seats and she loses her seat.
Yeah, that'd be very embarrassing.
That'd be embarrassing. Now we've got two more. Andrea Leadsom, 28-1. Now Leadsom was pretty unheard of before Brexit. Then she ran in the leadership election, so she's already ran in it before, and she came second. She made a very stupid mistake. I think it was taken out of context where she kind of said she was better as Prime Minister because she had children, whereas Theresa May doesn't.
Yeah.
I honestly think that was taken out of context. And who knows, because they would have campaigned for another month, so who knows if Theresa May would have actually won. I honestly think if her campaign strategy was like in the 2017 general election, she could have not won that.
Yeah.
Leadsom's pretty professional. She's leader of the House of Commons at the moment. She said the MPs can't take their Easter break because they have to sort out this mess they've created. So I like Leadsom.
But
I don't know if she'll be leader though.
I don't know. She's not really got that strong, country uniting leadership quite oomph to her there.
No, but she is a Brexiteer.
Yeah.
She's, she was a good supporter of Brexit. I don't know. I kind of like her. Out of everyone on this list, she's the one I kind of like. I like Boris, but Leadsom, I just kind of think, she comes across as quite a nice person.
She does, yeah. It's just she doesn't have that character.
No, she doesn't have a character.
Theresa May don't either.
No, that is very true. And the last one on this list is David Davis, 28-1. Now, out of all of these, Davis came close to being leader in 2005. He lost out to David Cameron in the membership vote. Only problem with Davis is his age, because he's quite old now, and I don't know, I felt like he was quite popular once he'd resigned. However, in recent months, no one's heard anything from him. He's even said he supported Theresa May's deal. It's like, why do you support the deal if you resigned as Brexit secretary? It made no sense. I honestly see him as a bit of indecisive.
Yeah.
He hardly turned up to any of the Brexit discussions.
Yeah. When
he was Brexit secretary. So I don't see Davis as actually having any support.
No.
I think a couple, although I don't think any will, and he's not even said he'll run. He said, might run, don't know, maybe.
This is unlikely that he'll be elected in.
And he's I'm not going to go through all of this thing because there's about 100 people. There's about 100 people.
I think even on this list there's even Nigel Farage is on there.
So there was probably two at the bottom, which made me laugh. They were 250 to 1. One of them was Nigel Farage, and the other one, surprisingly, was Chris Grayling, who is the incumbent Transport Secretary, who apparently is called Failing Grayling in the cabinet.
Yeah.
He wherever they seem to put him, he seems to be pretty rubbish.
A bit useless at it.
Whatever he does. So honestly, I think it could be any of these. I think any of them
definitely out of the ones we've talked about today, it's very I don't see it going any other way. One of the 10 people that we've talked about today, they will be the next Prime Minister. I guarantee that, and unless, of course, Jeremy Corbyn was to get in charge.
Corbyn will only get in if they call a general election. Yeah. And I don't see May calling a general election.
No, definitely not.
No.
The Conservative Party needs to sort its shit out, try and, basically get a leader who's going to command that public support, command the party. And if they can do that, sort out their policies and actually, I don't know, refresh the party a bit, then I suppose they could get back in again.
Yeah, I mean, the next general election's in 2022, so they have a couple of years to get everything sorted. I think by the end of this year, Brexit should be mostly sorted out.
Yeah.
Theresa May should, unless she tries to cling on, will be gone.
Yeah.
And then you have a new Prime Minister who can start working out exactly what they're going to do. I wouldn't actually hold an early general election. I think they should wait till 2022. And you never know, by 2022, Corbyn might be gone himself because he's not actually popular with his own party either.
In fact, in the polls recently, he's been, in 2 years, it's at the lowest at the moment. So
yeah,
it's a bit hard to say with polls exactly just what the majority of people are thinking, but it sort of tells he's not that popular at the moment.
And I think I heard a couple of weeks ago that if they did a general election tomorrow, polls indicate that May would win a majority of 30 seats and Corbyn would go right down.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think the days of Theresa May campaigning are over.
Yeah.
And I know she keeps saying she'd love to lead them into a new general election, but the days of her campaigning are over.
Yeah.
It's time for a new leader. And you never know, if we're still doing this in 2022, we might be talking a bit differently then.
Yeah, we might even have a proper studio then.
Yeah, you never even know.
So, what do you lot think should happen with the leadership of the Conservative Party, leadership of the country in general? Who do you think should be the next leader? Who do you think should be the one who takes Brexit and the UK to the next stages? And also, I want to know if any of you listen at home, best contact us on Twitter or in the comments down below. What do you think should be the option with where the government goes to Brexit next? Do you think they need to just say goodbye to Europe and just leave and just, I don't know, cut the ties, but also making sure that we can still trade with people, so there's not a big hold up at customs, so parcels and medicines and stuff can still flow through freely? What do you think should happen? Do you think we should just leave? Do you think we should try and give Theresa May a bit more time to try and jiggle her deal? We don't, but...
No, we definitely don't.
Or do you even think we should stop Brexit altogether and have a second referendum?
I mean, honestly, just give your opinion. I mean, we're only giving our opinion. Yeah. We're not saying... Obviously,
we're just two people.
Obviously, we think ours is right, but then everyone thinks their opinion is right.
Yeah.
If you have an idea of who you think's going to be next in charge and what you think they might do with Brexit, then as Matthew said,
just let us know.
Just let us know, and we'll think about it. Might not agree with it, but we'll definitely think about it.
So, thank you lot for listening to the first episode of Contemplating, Debating. This is our first episode. We're trying to get a few things ironed out, try and figure out a few things. Next episode, we're probably going to have a slightly different setup. We're going to have proper microphones set up instead of just one in the middle. We're going to have proper dedicated audio between us. Don't know, make a few tweaks, I don't know.
Yeah, it might look a bit different.
Yeah. Maybe tweak the format out.
Might be smart, might be something.
So definitely, anyone watching this, I definitely do encourage you, please get in contact with us on Twitter and say what your opinion is, because what we would love to do on the next episode is basically interact with you lot, interact with the public, and basically find out and talk about what people are saying. And we'll discuss your viewpoints. We'll discuss what you say. We'll say obviously have our say on what we think of what you have to say, but yeah, we want this to become a conversation, not just us lot talking over everyone.
I mean, it's politics is important. I think it's more important now than it ever has been. And it's important that everyone has their say. So if you comment to us and we could potentially read them out and kind of give an answer to your question.
Yeah.
Because whatever you can say, we can say
debate
what we
it.
think about it. Yeah, we can just debate it. So I'm going to thank Matthew for allowing me to come on here today because it's not every day I get to come on and do this stuff, especially on YouTube.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. We'll probably be back. We don't know. We ain't got an exact schedule. We'll try and make this a weekly thing if we can, or whenever we get round to it. So yeah.
Right. We'll see you when we do it again.
Yep. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.